The exterminator parks in front of your house with that shiny white truck. He walks around the house, sprays chemicals from that tank he carries on his back, leaves a little paper stuck to your door, and leaves. $800 a year, sometimes $1,000, sometimes $1,200. And it's not just 1 year, mind you, it's every single year, forever, as long as you own that house. Because the ants come back next month, the roaches in the spring, the fleas along with the dog, the spiders in the basement. And here comes the same white truck again, the same tank on his back, and the same hefty bill to pay, year after year, without end. Now I want you to stop for a moment and reflect on what I'm going to tell you. There is a soft, white powder that you can buy at a garden center, a feed store, or a hardware store for just $4 a bag. Just $4. And this powder kills ants. It kills roaches. It kills fleas, bedbugs, silverfish, the beetles that attack the grains stored in the pantry. Over 100 types of crawling pests, all by the same simple mechanism. And the most impressive part, it's not a chemical poison. It's a mineral pulled from the earth, so safe that the government itself allows it to be mixed into the grains you eat. And once applied in the right place and kept dry, it keeps on killing. Not for a week, not for a month, but for as long as it just sits there. A $4 little bag against an $800 a year service. How can these two things be true at the same time? Well, that is exactly what I'm going to explain to you today with all the calmness in the world. I come from a family of farmers, and my grandfather taught me about this powder when I was just a boy. He kept a bag in the barn and another in the chicken coop, and this powder has been a part of my entire life, of our cabinets and our pantries. Today I'm going to tell you exactly what it is, how to use it the right way, the mistakes that make it fail, the precautions to keep your family safe, and, most importantly, why an entire industry, which makes money off that monthly visit, will never knock on your door to recommend it. But before I move forward, do me a small kindness that helps me a lot. Leave your like right here on this video, because that's how this information reaches more people who have been throwing money away every month unnecessarily. Subscribe to the channel because I still have many old secrets to share with you. And take the opportunity to tell me down in the comments which pest has been tormenting you the most over the years. Ants, roaches, fleas, bedbugs, or silverfish. And from which city and state you are watching me. I make a point of knowing who is here with me. Deal? So come with me and I'll show you this powder. Let me first explain what this powder is, because as soon as you understand this, the rest of the video will make crystal clear sense. Its name is diatomaceous earth. I know, it's a long and complicated name, almost too scientific for something so simple. But in plain English, what it really is just a mineral pulled from the ground. A soft white earth similar to chalk, extracted from certain natural deposits, much like how clay or chalk itself is extracted. And when they grind this earth very fine, it turns into a powder as soft as flour, light and dusty, that slips through your fingers and feels like baby powder. And here comes the most curious part of all. You can stick your hand inside the bag without any fear. You don't need gloves. It doesn't sting. It has no smell. It does no harm whatsoever to the touch. To you and me, that right there is just harmless dust, as mild as wheat flour. You look at that powder and think, but how is something so delicate, so soft, going to manage to wipe out the pests in my house? It almost seems like a joke. Well, it is precisely in this contrast, in this appearance of being nothing at all, that the whole secret lies. Because what your eyes see is nowhere near what a tiny insect sees. Let me reveal the marvel that hides inside there, because that's what does all the work. Under a magnifying glass, those soft white particles are not soft at all. Up close, very close, they are tiny, hard fragments, full of sharp points and jagged edges, as cutting as shards of glass on the scale of a little creature. Pay close attention to this image, because it is the key to everything. Soft as flour to us, sharp as broken glass to an insect. This is the dual nature of this powder, and it is what separates those who know how to use it from those who have never heard of it. Think of the poetic injustice of this thing. The same handful of powder that glides harmlessly across the palm of your hand is, to an ant or a roach, a veritable minefield of blades. We walk on flour without feeling a thing. The insect, with its fragile little body and delicate shell, crosses a terrain of invisible knives. And it doesn't even suspect the danger, because, just as for us, to it, that also just looks like silly dust in the way. That is when the trap closes, silently and accurately, without the pest ever understanding what hit it. So hold on tight to this first idea, because everything else I'm going to tell you rests upon it. Diatomaceous earth is a soft, white mineral taken from the earth, which to us is nothing more than harmless dust, and to an insect is a floor covered in ground glass. It's not magic, it's not a spell, it's not laboratory chemistry. It is just nature using the very shape of things in our favor. But if it doesn't poison the bug, if it doesn't make it sick, then how exactly does this powder manage to kill over 100 different types of pests? It is about this mechanism, as ingenious as it is simple, that I want to talk to you right now. Now let me explain to you how this powder actually kills, because this is the most ingenious part of the whole story. When a beetle, an ant, or a roach walks over a thin layer of this powder, those sharp little fragments scratch the waxy coating that covers the outside of the insect's shell. This layer of wax, pay attention, is what holds the moisture inside the creature's little body. It's like a raincoat that keeps its water trapped. And it is exactly this protective coat that the powder scratches away, little by little, with every step the bug takes on it. And what happens when this coating is cut? The moisture that was trapped inside begins to leak out, and the insect starts drying up, withering, dehydrating until it dies. Notice an important thing. It is not poisoned, it doesn't get sick, it doesn't feel unwell. The powder simply scratches its skin until the body can no longer retain its own water. It is a death by desiccation, pure and simple, caused only by the physical shape of that mineral. There is no chemistry involved, no toxin, no poison running through the bug's veins. Just the powder, the shell, and the ruthless law of nature doing its work. And now I'm going to tell you the part that makes the big chemical poison companies tear their hair out. Listen closely, because this is important. Insects can, over the course of many generations, build resistance to poisons. It works like this. The strongest survive the spray, reproduce, pass that strength on, and after a while, that poison that worked so well 10 years ago simply stops having an effect. That is why products are constantly changing, getting stronger, and pests keep coming back. An endless race which, let's be honest, is great for those selling the poison. But here is the catch, the thing that changes everything. You cannot build a resistance against a shard of glass. Think about it for a moment. There is no way for an insect to become thicker, more armored, than a sharp blade that simply scratches its skin. There is no genetic trick, no clever evolution that can handle that. The shell might even thicken a bit over the generations, but the sharp point is still there, cutting just the same. There is no smart way out against the physics of a cutting edge. It is simple and it is final. And that is why this powder works even on those bugs where the spray stopped having an effect a long time ago. Physics does not negotiate, my friend. It makes no deals, makes no exceptions, does not yield over time. While a poison is a battle you slowly lose, generation after generation, the powder is a victory that repeats itself exactly the same, because it doesn't depend on the bug's chemistry, but on its shape. This is the heart of everything I am telling you. But I know that by this point, you must be curious to know exactly which pests this powder works against. And the list, I assure you, is much longer than you imagine. Now let me spell out for you exactly which pests this powder works on, because the list is long and people deserve to know this. It works on ants, on those tiny ones that march in a line across your kitchen counter, on carpenter ants that burrow into wood, on fire ants that gather near the porch. It works on roaches, both the small, nervous ones and those big, scary ones that appear at night. And it works on fleas, in the dog's bed, on the living room rug, in that accumulated dust in the corners where they hide to multiply out of your sight. And it goes way beyond that. It works on bedbugs, and this right here is quite a victory. Pay attention. Bedbugs have become terribly difficult to kill with chemical products because they have built a resistance to sprays in most big cities. They beat the poison, but they haven't built any resistance whatsoever against ground glass, and they never will. It also works on bathroom silverfish, on centipedes and millipedes in the basement, on crickets that come in looking for warmth in the winter, on slugs that attack the garden bed, and even on ticks hiding in the tall grass near the dog kennel. And look, all this isn't just a salesman's smooth talk. No, it's serious business, officially recognized. The government registered this powder as a pest control product over 60 years ago, way back in 1960. More than enough time so that no one can pretend it's a novelty or something unproven. This is the very powder that organic farmers use on their crops. You know why? Because it doesn't leave any chemical residue behind on the food. And it's the same powder that many country folks mix in a small dosage along with stored grains to keep weevils away from the wheat without poisoning the wheat. That shows the sheer scale of its safety when you have the right kind. But I need to be honest with you about its limits as well, because I'm not going to let you think this is a miracle that solves everything by magic. The powder works best on softer-bodied and smaller creatures: ants, fleas, bedbugs, soft larvae. On these, it dries them out in a day or two. But on larger, harder-shelled bugs, like an adult beetle or a very large, tough-shelled roach, it takes longer. 3 days, a week, sometimes a bit more, because they have more shell for the powder to get through and more water in their body to lose. So don't expect to wake up with the floor covered in dead bugs on the very first morning. It is slow, but it is accurate. And there is one more detail you need to remember very carefully, because it fools almost everyone on the first try. The powder does not kill the pest's eggs. It kills the live bug that walks over it. But the eggs hatch, turn into live bugs, and these newborn bugs then walk through the powder, which then kills them. That is why, for fast reproducing pests, you leave the powder in place for a few weeks, making it through more than one birth cycle. It takes patience, not despair. And speaking of doing things the right way, there is a mistake when buying this powder that ruins everything. And it's about this that I need to warn you right now, before you throw your money away. Now we get to the most important point of all about which bag to buy. And I'm going to say this very clearly, without beating around the bush, because messing up here is the most common mistake there is. Pay close attention over the next few minutes, because this information alone is worth the entire video. There are two types of diatomaceous earth sold out there. One is called food grade, and the other is pool grade, sometimes called filter grade. And here is the trap. Both are almost identical inside the bag. They cost roughly the same price, and yet the difference between them is simply enormous, a matter of life or death for your purpose. Let me explain each one of them. Food grade is the pure, simple powder, ground very fine with nothing added. This is the one you want. This is the right one. Memorize this name well. It is safe to use inside the kitchen, around children, around your pets. It is the exact same one that the government considers safe enough to be mixed into food in small doses, as I already told you before. This one, and only this one, is the powder for pest control in your home. You can't go wrong. If it says food grade on the packaging, you are on the right track. You can buy it without a worry. Now, pool grade is a very different and dangerous story. It is the same mineral, it's true, but they heated it to an extremely high temperature to change its chemistry, precisely so it can filter pool water. And this heat treatment transforms the powder into a form that is much more dangerous to breathe. Besides that, the bag can come with other added chemicals. So memorize this. Pool grade is not for pest control. It is not for indoor use. Pool grade you leave right there at the pool supply store. Don't even go near it. Don't save yourself some trouble by bringing the wrong bag into your home. So when buying, you look closely at the bag, and the bag needs to say food grade. In English, for those looking for it, it is written food grade. There are well-known brands, and you can find this powder at any garden center, agricultural supply store, hardware store, or you can simply order it online and have it arrive at your door. A small bag goes for about $4 to $8 and is enough for an entire house. A large bag, the kind used to treat a whole property, with a barn, chicken coop, and garden bed, goes for about $20 to $30. Food grade always, every time, without exception. And I insist on this because it is the difference between solving your problem and creating a new one. Grab the wrong bag and you'll end up with a headache instead of a solution. Grab the right bag and you hold in your hands exactly what every old farmer kept in the corner of the barn. That same powder that passed through generations doing its silent work. It is a simple choice, but one that needs to be made carefully, right there in front of the shelf. And now that you know which powder to take home, it's time for me to teach you the right way to use it. Because believe me, The way you apply this powder is what separates those who see results from those who just stare at the powder sitting on the floor without understanding why nothing happens. Now let me show you exactly how to use this powder, because the way you apply it is the difference between it actually working and it just sitting there doing nothing. And the first rule, the most important of all, is this: a very thin layer, not a pile. This fools almost everyone the first time around. People get excited, they pour out a thick pile of powder thinking that more is better, and it's not like that at all. On the contrary, the insect sees that mountain of powder in its path and simply goes around it, skirts it, passes on the outside, and then it does absolutely no good. What you want is an almost invisible layer, as thin as possible, so that the creature doesn't even notice it's there until it has already walked over it. Think of a very light white film, like a dusting of nothing, not a pile of snow. And the easiest way to achieve this thin layer is with a powder duster, that plastic squeeze bottle with a long tip that releases the powder in a gentle little cloud. It costs a few dollars, sold in the same place that sells the powder. If you don't have one, you can adapt a very clean old salt shaker or even one of those squeeze ketchup bottles. The important thing is to manage to spread that thin, even, and almost invisible layer, which is the one that really works. Inside the house, you apply the powder exactly where the pests actually travel and hide. Along the baseboards, in every room, a very thin line right in the corner where the wall meets the floor. Behind and under the fridge, the stove, the dishwasher, in those warm, dark places where roaches love to live. On cabinet hinges and in the corners, especially under the sink. Around door and window frames where ants come in. And if you can get access to the hollow space inside a wall, by taking off an outlet cover, for example, a little puff inside there works wonders, because in that spot the powder stays bone dry forever and keeps working for years on end. For fleas, you lightly sprinkle the powder on the rug, especially under the furniture and on the edges of the rooms where the dog usually sleeps. Leave it there for a few days and then vacuum it up. In the pet's bed, a little pinch in the seams. Now, to apply it directly onto the animal, talk to your vet first, okay? Every animal is different, and it's better to be safe. And for bedbugs, that stubborn pest, this is exactly where this powder is winning the war, where chemical products have already surrendered. You apply a thin layer under the mattress, on the bed seams, in the joints of the bed frame, and along the baseboards of the bedroom. Then you leave it be. There is no rush. The bedbugs cross the powder on their nightly wanderings and slowly die over the following days. And for the outside of the house, and also for stored grains, there are a few little secrets that make all the difference. But first, I need to tell you the golden rule of outdoor use. Remember how I insisted earlier that this powder needs to be dry? Well, here that becomes law. You always apply it in the morning, after the dew has dried, and only when there is no rain in the forecast for a day or two. Because, and memorize this phrase well, wet powder is sleeping powder. Water clumps the particles together, rounds off those sharp little edges, and then the powder doesn't do anything anymore. Dry, it stays alive and working forever. Wet, it turns off. And speaking of keeping your home safe and proper usage, there are some simple precautions regarding your family and your pets that I absolutely cannot fail to share with you right now. Now let me give you a few honest words about safety, because I am not going to skip this part no matter what. It is far too important. When you are applying the powder in closed, tight spaces, wear a protective mask, just a simple dust mask. And look, pay attention to what I'm going to say so you don't misunderstand. The powder itself is not poison. If by chance you accidentally swallowed a spoonful, your body would simply pass it through without a major problem. It is not a toxin. It is not an aggressive chemical product. But one thing is one thing, and another thing is another thing. The point is this: breathing in any fine dust day after day ends up irritating the inside of your nose and your lungs. Not because the powder is poisonous, but because it is the nature of all fine dust to bother the respiratory tract over time. So when you are applying it under a bed or working in a small enclosed space without ventilation, a simple hardware store mask makes everything more comfortable and peaceful. Outdoors or in a well-ventilated room, this is barely even a concern. The old farmers handled this powder with their bare hands for generations and generations. but a little care costs nothing, and it's always good to have it. For the same reason, keep the powder out of reach of small children, so they don't go kicking all that dust up into the air and breathing it nonstop. It is not because it will poison them, understand this well, but simply because a small child does not need a cloud of dust, whatever kind it may be, in their little face. It is common sense. It is that natural care we have with any fine substance inside the house. Keep the bag in a high, dry place, out of the reach of curious little hands, and you will have nothing to worry about. Simple prudence, the kind every mother and father already knows all too well. And as for pets, I have good news. This powder is gentle on dogs and cats. Gentler, in fact, than almost any other pest product I know. But pay attention to one detail. If you apply it excessively, too much powder, it can dry out the animal's skin or little paws. So once again, that golden rule that has already popped up several times in our conversation applies. A very thin layer, always. Never overdo it. With just a little powder, well distributed, you protect the house from pests without bothering your four-legged companion at all. It is balance that makes all the difference. And there is one more honest word I need to say, this one regarding bees. The powder cannot distinguish a helpful insect from a pest, and it can, indeed, harm bees and other good little creatures if you apply it directly onto the flowers they visit. So, in the garden, do not sprinkle the powder on top of open flowers. Apply it around the base of the plant, on the dirt, on slug trails, but never on the flowers where the bees are working. The good gardener protects the bees with the same care with which he eliminates the slugs. It is a matter of respect for nature, which gives and takes in equal measure. And now, my friend, after everything we've talked about, the most important moment of all has arrived. That question that might have been hammering in your head since the beginning. If this powder is so good, so cheap, and so safe, why is it that almost no one has heard of it? Now, I want us to pause for a moment, because this is the part that really matters. Think with me about everything we've just covered in this conversation. A bag of soft, white mineral pulled from the earth with no chemicals at all, costing $4. It kills over 100 types of crawling pests by the same simple physical mechanism without any of them being able to build resistance, without leaving any chemical residue. Safe enough to use in your kitchen and lasting for years wherever it stays bone dry. And across the street, the extermination company charges your neighbor $800 a year, every year, to come back month after month with their sprays and the tank on their back. How can these two things be true at the same time? Well, my friend, both are true. So why is it that almost no one knows about this powder? Let me be honest with you, because I'm not going to tell you a soap opera villain story. I'm not going to say there is a pest control company president locked in a secret room, hiding the bag of powder from your eyes. The truth is simpler than that, and, in a way, even worse. It is not a movie conspiracy. It is just the way money moves in this world. Listen closely, because here is the crux of it all. There is no money in a one-time $4 solution. But there is a lot of money in a monthly subscription that repeats itself forever. The entire industry, the trucks, the tanks, the door-to-door salesmen, the annual contracts, all of that was built on a single idea. The idea that you are going to need them again next month, and the next, and the next. A powder that you apply once and forget simply doesn't pay a salesman's commission. It doesn't sustain an expensive television commercial. And what doesn't generate recurring profit, my friend, no one bothers to advertise. And that is why, exactly why, nobody airs a commercial for this powder on television. And nobody knocks on your door to recommend it. And so an entire nation ends up believing that pest control is something only a professional in a white truck can do. Notice that nobody had to boldly lie. Silence was enough. Never telling was enough. My grandfather knew about this powder because his father showed him, and his father before that. The old farmers always knew. The bag was there the whole time, on the shelf of the agricultural supply store, waiting. Most people were just never guided to look for it. Well, now you are being guided, and that is where things change. Because knowledge that stays only in your head doesn't unclog a pipe or scare away a single pest. So here is what I want you to do this very week. Look for an agricultural supply store, a garden center, or the right shelf at the hardware store, and ask for food-grade diatomaceous earth. Read the bag, confirm that it says food grade, pick up that little powder duster too, and start slowly, with a very thin layer along the kitchen baseboards, behind the fridge, under the stove. But before you run off to the store, let me tie this all together with you and give you the final pieces of advice, the ones that are going to make all this wisdom truly work inside your home. If you have made it this far with me, from the first minute to this exact moment, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. And look, the simple fact that you stayed until the end already says a lot about you. It says that you are the type of person who isn't satisfied with paying and paying every month without understanding why. That you prefer to learn to do it with your own hands. That you value a simple and honest solution over an expensive problem that never ends. And it is precisely for people like you that I make a point of sharing these old secrets. The ones that were almost lost to time, but remain as true today as they were in my grandfather's time. Think about everything we talked about. A soft white powder, pulled from the ground, that costs a few dollars and does the work that an entire industry charges fortunes to do, month after month, year after year. A mineral so simple it almost seems too good to be true, and yet it is the pure truth. Proven, registered, used by farmers and organic growers for over 60 years. Food-grade diatomaceous earth is no miracle or spell. It is just nature, with its silent wisdom, working in our favor. And the most beautiful part of it all is that it was always right there, within your reach, just waiting for someone to tell you about it. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson I want to leave planted in your heart today. The best solutions in life are almost never the most expensive or the most complicated ones. Often, they are the simplest, the humblest, the ones our grandmother already knew and that the rush of the modern world made us forget. We were taught to believe that only the expensive stuff is good, that only the professional can solve it, that only the complicated works. But the truth, my friend, is that a good part of what we need to live well and with peace of mind has been, this whole time, on the shelf of the simplest corner store for $4 a bag. So my request to you is this. Don't let this information die here, sitting still, becoming just another video you watched and forgot. Go to the store this very week. Find the bag, read the label, apply that thin layer, and let the powder do its job. And later, when you have tested it, come back here and tell me what happened over those 2 weeks. Because the stories you all share teach the newcomers much more than my words ever could. I read every comment, one by one, with full attention. Also tell me which pest has cost you the most money and patience over the years, whether it was ants, roaches, fleas, bedbugs, or silverfish. And if this video opened your eyes, if it saved you some good money, or simply taught you something new and useful, do a kindness that costs nothing and helps me immensely. Leave your like right down below, because that is how this message reaches other families who have been throwing money away unnecessarily. And subscribe to the channel, because in the next video, I'm going to show you the old way my people keep rats and mice far away from the pantry and from inside the house, with simple traps and little doorway tricks that ensure you never have this problem again. It is the natural next step after today. Until then, find the bag, apply a thin line, keep everything bone dry, and let the farmer's old powder do what chemistry cannot. A big hug, and see you next time.